All right. Welcome everybody to today's webinar. I thank you very much for joining today in these special times, and I appreciate that you took some time to discover something new and also learn something new from us. As we usually begin the webinar, we're going to talk about a little bit about our housekeeping items, which I like to mention in front of every webinar, and that is for everybody is going to be muted. And this just makes sure we don't have any unnecessary background noise during the presentations. But not to worry, there are other ways you can communicate with us as we go. Everybody has a chat box as part of their GoToWebinar control panel that usually pops up on the right-hand side of the screen. It's this long skyscraper looking toolbar, which provides you with the necessary chat options. So you can either just ask a question via the chat or email us after the webinar if you want to. Rest assured, your questions will be heard. We will have a 15-minute Q&A section at the end of the webinar. We're also going to have a couple of poll questions for you included into the webinar. I always like to run those to learn a little bit from you and also understand who's on the webinar present and gets a little bit of a better understanding for all of us as well. So let's move ahead and jump right into it. And since I was talking so much, I think I'm gonna have Jason introduce himself right now.
Okay, thank you, Roman. Hi, everybody. I'm Jason. I've been with Miovision for over 10 years now. I've got to see the company grow. I've got to see my team grow, and I've got to see all kinds of extra quality checks added and improved along the way. So I'm happy to be here today.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason. I'm Roman, as you can see. A couple of you already heard me speak at one of our past webinars, but also met me probably in person at one of our events across the EMEA markets. And for the ones who don't know me, as said, I'm Roman here at the EMEA office. I'm responsible for all the marketing initiatives and activities coming out of the EMEA office. So now that you know who we are, we like to know a little bit about more our audience. And I like to run a poll who's actually on the call. And if you could please select the necessary possibility. If you are working in the data collection or traffic operations at a city, you work at an engineering firm, you are from a data collector, or you work in some other city capacity. I give it about a minute for everybody to answer, and then we're gonna look at the results. Thanks. All right, just a couple more seconds, and then we're gonna look at the results. All right, let's take a look at the results. All right, awesome. I can see we have a high attendance rate from people from engineering firms. That's great. I think the times for you guys have now been very challenging as traffic has changed tremendously. And I think not only us, it's felt by, but also you. I see there's a good portion of people who are working also at the city level and traffic data collectors, as well as a good representation of others. Thank you very much for participating in the poll, and let's move ahead to what's on the agenda today. I hope everybody sees my screen. Yes. So first of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about Miovision, give you a summary, who we are, where we came from. Then obviously I want to talk a little bit about data accuracy and different methods you have available and their accuracy rates. I'm going to give you a brief introduction to the Miovision DataLink solution. And number 4, this is all Jason's time to shine, is we show you how we are processing our videos from video to data. And this is probably the section most of you are interested in, but let's dive right into my part of the webinar. So who is Miovision? Miovision is a company which was founded in 2005 by a couple of students from the University of Waterloo. And why was it founded? Well, it just started all out with the manual counts they were doing during their time at the university. And while sitting in the colds and the heats of the weather in Canada, they thought there must be a better way to come up. Besides thinking of a very cool name like Miovision, they also thought of our now presently available in Europe solution, the Miovision Scout. It provided them, or it provides all the cities with an opportunity to collect data quickly and fast wherever they need it to get the necessary temporary count data they require for lots of city projects and engineering work. We are present across Europe, as you can see from our references. We have customers in the Nordics, in the west of Europe, also some in the east, mainly in Germany as well. And they're ranging from cities all the way to private entities as well. We are currently processing more than 13,000 hours on a monthly basis, just in Europe alone. And up to date, we've counted over nearly 7 billion cars so far across the world. So as you can see, we are not only present everywhere, we have a wide gained experience from counting or processing video across the globe. So as you could see, accuracy is very important to us. And before I'm gonna give you a little bit of a insight of what we have tested for here at Miovision, but also with independent benchmark reports, I like to know a little bit more about your opinion on data accuracy. And that is, how important is data accuracy to you? Is it very important? It is important, so not so much. It's neither important nor unimportant, and it's not important at all. So if you could give me your insight, that would be great. All right, I give it another 20 seconds to get the votes in, and then we all look together at the results. Thanks. All right, let's take a look at the final results. I'm very glad to see that everybody thinks that data accuracy is very important in their line of work, and neither thinks it's not important at all. Thank you very much for those insights, and that makes probably my conversation or my examples to understand a little bit easier. So, we all know that traffic engineers or data collectors or anybody who's collecting traffic data has various methods to collect temporary count data. And first of all, I wanted to show you an example or a comparison we've done between tubes in video when it came to vehicles. So with the help of Traffic Data Bank, a company out of New York who deployed our video solution right next to road tubes in New York City, rendered the following results. And that, as you can see here in the graph, let me point this out right here, is you have the blue one is the road tube data, and the red one is actually Miovision counted data. From there, you can see that on average, there's a 13% of vehicle difference than observed in the actual video in comparison. This can result from various things, weather conditions, and so forth. You as data collectors probably know the best why these differences occur. But what we've saw is an average of 13%. And looking particular a little bit deeper into the data, we even noticed that in some incidences, particularly when blockage occurs, the difference was even higher with 35%. 5%. As you could see here, for example, in this spike, or if we go and do a little bit later in the day, even here. So what does that usually mean? For a lot of people, a difference can be okay, but we did a little thinking ahead and modeled a four-way intersection in a peak hour scenario and assumed a 15% overcounting on all volumes. What that rendered was that subsequently this translated into a rating of the level of service from a level C versus a level D. And if you know that a level C actually represents a better traffic flow than the level of D, then you understand that it's good to know the differences in your data to get. As a second part, I want to talk a bit about an independent study which was done from, or which came from Belgium, from the region Flandern. They compared the four different methods of counting bicycle data. And they used a permanent count station, our camera, road tubes, and the data, and the radar. As you can see from the graph, the yellow one represents right here the graph for the permanent count station, and the gray shaded area represents the actual count of the bicycles driving past each individual counting method. So following the graph of the gray shaded area, you start realizing that most often, particularly the radar was either spiking above the actual count or very much below it, right here. When we are looking at road tubes, they tentatively undercounted when it came to bicycle data as well, and rendered a 2.03 error rate. Miovision Scout provided a very close to reality account number, and as you can see, and we follow the blue line, you see it nicely moves along the gray shaded area with a few exceptions, because it still rendered a 1.03 error rate. So knowing with these, or having these in mind, I wanted to ask you, now that I know how you think, what your customers are actually thinking about the importance of data accuracy. Do you have your customers actually demanding high accuracy rates, or do you have your customers rather have you guide them in the particular accuracy rate? So let me ask you the question as it is and run the poll. How important it is to your clients, the data accuracy? Is it very important, not important, neither important, or not important at all? All right, I'm going to give it 10 more seconds, and then we're going to look at the final result. All right, let's look at the results. So I can see there's a very much of an alignment between you and your clients, as we have an 85% score for the very important, but I also see that we have a 12% score where the client actually think it's neither important nor unimportant. Maybe it would be awesome to talk to you after the webinar in an email conversation or on a phone conversation to learn a little bit more why that is. So let's move into our solution, what we are here offering at Miovision. We at Miovision provide to you an all-in-one traffic data collection solution with which you can not only collect the data at any particular location, but you also have the ability to manage and organize your data all in one place with our cloud platform. So you have three individual parts, which consist of the Miovision Scout. This is our hardware solution. You have our DataLink cloud platform available to you with every Scout purchase, and obviously our video processing capability. Let me dive a little bit deeper into each individual part. The Miovision Scout is a purpose-built device we are offering to all our clients. It has the ability to be fast deployed within the field. Usually, first-time users take about 15 minutes to deploy it in the field, and it's very weather resistant. It's being used all across the world, from the heats of Dubai all the way to the colds of Alaska. It is equipped with GPS and LTE connectivity and antenna, and has the ability to collect Wi-Fi MAC address data, which is anonymized right at the Scout. With the help of the internal battery, you are able to count for 3 consecutive days. And if you like to count for longer periods of time or record video for longer periods of time, we have the opportunity to extend the Scout with the help of a power pack. From the right-hand side, you see the schematics. It's without an extended pole. We are talking about 1.2 meters height. And if you start extending the pole, you get a great bird's eye view from 6 meters above the ground, supported by our wide angle camera. If you'd like to learn more about the Scout, feel free to ask questions or to talk to one of our sales reps if you're not familiar with the solution already. So, DataLink platform. This is our cloud-based platform and provides you with a couple of great features. One I always like to point out is, and has been very much underutilized by lots of our users at this point, that is the planning tool. With the planning tool or planning feature within DataLink, you have the ability to quickly plan an entire traffic data collection project within the Miovision platform, and then send it out with the help of field sheets to your field technicians. You also have a great way of organizing your entire projects and including studies, so you can actually take a look at what you have counted, where you counted it, and via the map feature on top of it. You also have the ability, if you want to share the final outcome or the data with your colleagues, co-workers, or even clients. And if you run a large Scout deployment, DataLink provides you with the feature of monitoring the entire Scout fleet via the DataLink platform by giving you notifications of black screens, low batteries, or storage problems on the Scout. But I don't want to even go further into this. That's where we have particular webinars explaining you the solution from Scout, as well as the DataLink in more detail. So now it's enough from me. I want to hand over the mic to Jason, who gives us a broader overview or even more details into Miovision's video processing capabilities.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to walk through how we turn the video into data, but first I'm going to just touch on the types of studies that we would call them that you might do. So with your Scout unit, you could collect video from an intersection. That would be our most common study type. That's a turning movement count. And that would capture all the movements left, right, and through, and also include the crosswalk volumes. We also do roundabouts studies, and they can be a bit more complicated due to the total size of the roundabout. And we have some limitations, which I'll touch on a bit later. Our second study type is, or our other study type, is our volume counts. So you might know these as ADTs or ATR studies. They can be done with road tubes as well, and they capture movements along a section of road or in and out of a driveway. So over the past few years, we've seen an increase as these through our cameras because they're safer to deploy rather than road tubes. And as mentioned, they do often get you a higher level of accuracy. And if you're looking for ped and bike data, which is becoming ever more popular, we also offer those in both the junction and pathway format. So the pathway is more like a volume count. Think of it as your vehicle ATR, and a pedestrian junction is more like a pedestrian TMC, which will offer the through, right, and left movements. So just to think about your deployment, before you send us the video, you want to make sure you have a good deployment to maximize your accuracy. So you want to start by placing your scout within 12 feet of the intersection, or 3.5 meters. And for vehicle studies, there's 3 shown on this slide: intersections, roundabouts, and highways. So you should have the camera from the camera to the farthest movement. That should be 53 meters. And for road and highway studies, you can request the data by lane or just by direction. That would be all the lanes together. So when capturing by lane, we recommend no more than 4 lanes per camera. And when capturing by direction, we can support up to 6 lanes of traffic. The image here on the slide is for distance representation only, but we do recommend that you set up your camera at a 45-degree angle facing into traffic, and that would allow us to better capture vehicles that are traveling beside each other at the same speed. And not shown here, but for pedestrian studies, reminder there, it's 38 meters for best accuracy from the camera to the furthest movement. So I have a few examples. The first one here is deploying a camera for ped and bike studies. So there's one image of a ped pathway. So that one's alongside kind of a highway there. We can also just do standard crosswalks. And then there's a few examples here of pedestrian junctions. So those are the ones that are going to give you full movements, whether the people are turning right or left. Again, we would just remind you that the closer you can be, the better the accuracy will be. If you have a larger intersection that's maybe bigger than the 53-meter distance, we would recommend using multiple cameras. Look closely here, we have the poor setup example with the red kind of viewpoint of the camera, and the good one with the green angles of the camera view. So when multiple cameras are used, it'll allow our team to choose the best angle to capture each movement. So in this example, on the cameras with the red angles in the middle, if you have a through movement coming from the bottom to the top, it'll be captured first on the one camera and then it will disappear, and we actually won't know on that camera if it ended up completing the through movement or turning left. So you want to use the cameras kind of on the outside so that the full movement is captured, because we can't track from one camera to the other. So I would remind you to, whenever possible with a larger intersection, use multiple cameras. That will help increase your accuracy, and we don't charge extra to process extra cameras, so it increases your accuracy without increasing the cost. Many of you probably are deploying roundabouts as well. So for roundabouts smaller than 53 meters, you can do that all on one camera, unless it has a large obstruction in the middle. So if it has an obstruction in the middle, like a nice sculpture, or if it's just larger in size and you can't see all the way across, then we're going to recommend you use multiple cameras. The diagram on the right with the 4 different colors is the best example of this. So for best results, I recommend facing the camera back into traffic and using medians whenever possible to kind of capture whether the vehicles are exiting or not. So we're going to capture that in 4 different sections for this example. We need to see the vehicles entering and whether they turn right, or if it's left-hand traffic, if they make the first left, or if they stay on. And then we also need to capture from sort of a circulating movement to whether they exit in each quadrant or they stay on again. And then our algorithm will take those 4 sort of individual TMCs and put them together and give you a full origin destination data. So because it's a bit of an estimation through an algorithm, that is in 15-minute bins, but it will give you full origin destination volumes for a large intersection where it can be maybe 300 feet across, but if we capture on multiple cameras, you can still get full data. The other example on the screen is if you go back a slide, sorry, is the 5-leg intersection roundabout. So for 5 legs, it's important to note that we need to see the first and second exiting movements. So we need to track the vehicles a little further for 2 exits. So depending on the size, it can limit how much we can do there. But keep in mind for these setups, you might want to contact our support team and they'll give you some advice. Finally, regarding setup, you just want to have some things to avoid on this slide. So first, make sure your Scout is secured and make sure your camera's on. And then in this first example, there's a pole in the way, so you want to avoid things like that. that would cause some movements to be off camera, and that study might be placed on hold. The middle image shows a bus that's kind of blocking the vehicles behind it. So in this scenario, we might have reduced accuracy for the movements happening behind that bus because we can't see them. So it's important that you get the camera fully deployed, fully extend the mast when you're setting it up. And finally, you want to avoid sun glare. So whenever possible, you want to face your camera north or south to avoid the sun glare. Again, if you're having trouble identifying poles or where you should set it up, our support team gives deployment recommendations there as well.
Wow, this is really a lot to remember. But as you mentioned, Miovision support is always there for you. We always recommend to check the setup via the Scout screen once the recording is going on, and use the screenshots which are sent to the DataLink platform I mentioned earlier to double check if the camera during the recording is still looking at the right area. Because I think, and you agree with that, it is nothing more annoying, to go back, redo this study, or have to do the setup again and redo the entire project. So, all right, back to you, Jason, and on how we process or how we quality check the data we deliver to our clients.
All right, so it does come down to 4 steps. We're simplifying a bit here. And the fourth one is sort of only if available. So step 1 would be our configuration. Step 2 is the processing and then the data review. Step 3 is our visualization, and step 4 is a corridor check, which we can do if there is another study nearby. So the configuration process, here's where we're mapping all the movements. We're highlighting the entrance and exit areas. We're using the customer annotation seen on the top right to determine where north, east, south, and west should be labeled. So we'll manually label those and make sure the sort of matches what the customer is expecting. And each study can consist of several cameras or trim times. So we're making sure that we're annotating all of each camera and each trim. Some customers only want peak times, others want 100 hours straight, or we can do 100 hours straight. You might need to use multiple units if you want to do a full week-long study. So each camera is configured, and we were checking for camera shifts and sun glare during this time. And each movement is drawn to represent a connection from the entrance to the exit, so that when it's processed, when vehicles are tracked from entrance to exit, then they register to each movement that has been completed. So here is also when we would provide feedback. So I'm going to deviate a bit from the steps and go into our feedback process. So the feedback that you would get comes in the form of a star rating. We use that to communicate the expected accuracy based on the setup. So you can see on the slide here what accuracy you might expect. If you're receiving a 4 or 5 star rating, we'll continue forward with the processing. If you want to get a 5-star rating, we're looking for the mast to be fully deployed and the distance of the intersection to be less than 175 feet, which I believe is 53 meters. When it comes to angling the camera, we want to make sure you're maximizing the real estate of the view. So in order to receive 5 stars, we'd like to see all 4 curbs and not a lot of extra buildings outside of the intersection. And that ensures that all of the road vehicles, including pedal bikes, will be visible when they travel through the intersection. If you're receiving anything lower than a 3-star rating, we'll place the study on hold. So we're going to do that to notify our customers that 1 or more movements may have reduced accuracy. In this case, we're estimating the reduced accuracy based on our experience, and it could be as low as 85% at 3 stars. In most cases, these movements will still score higher than 85% and even closer to 95 or higher, but based on past experiences, we want to place this on hold because we aren't as confident. So we don't want to risk any of the accuracy being a bit off, so we're going to inform you which movements might have issues. The most common reason a study goes on hold is that the far right turn is just simply really far away, especially if it's a slip lane. So in most cases, using a second camera to capture those movements would prevent the study from going on hold and would ensure a higher accuracy. If something's blocked by a post, like I showed in that other example, or in the rare case that the camera has shifted, we'll provide the movements and time intervals that may have a missing data or reduced accuracy, and then the customer can choose whether they want to proceed or take the time to go recapture that intersection. So we don't want to avoid any surprises, so we try to put anything on hold beforehand, before we start the process, in order to keep our customers informed. And often if we just need clarification, we'll also put a study on hold. So for example, if you've requested a 5-leg intersection and we only see 4 legs, we would reach out to you to get clarification. So that creates a bit of a back and forth to make sure that we're processing it correctly the first time. It is video, so we can process it and then reprocess it and reprocess it again. But we think it's best for everyone if we try to get it right the first time. A little special note here about pedestrians, ped and bikes. So the star ratings for ped and bikes can be a bit different. The distance, they need to be closer, and we actually recommend, not having lanes of traffic in between. So in this example, there's 2 lanes of traffic actually blocking or potentially that could travel in front of this intersection. Also note that these pedestrians, if they kind of cut the corner, also might not be captured. So we want to make sure that it's centered a bit more and we can see better. And we recommend not to go too far around the intersection. So this one is okay. The corner on the left side of the screenshot, we would not recommend, because as you see, that bus would pull up and go right by it and block that whole part of that pedestrian junction. So with our pedestrian accuracy, it follows our 95/5 rule. So it's a bit modified actually from that. So for volumes up to 50 pedestrians in a 15-minute period, we would say we're accurate within plus or minus 5 pedestrians, and 95% accurate for volumes over 50 in a 15-minute segment. However, keep in mind that if there's large clusters of pedestrians, we've found that we're within 25% per cluster. So if there's a big mob of people traveling together, obviously if you can't see, we can't see either. We might not be able to distinguish between each unique one, but we're within 25% on those. I think that's about it for that one. Going back to our stepped process, after the processing is ran through, we will review the data. So we're comparing multiple data sets here to ensure a high standard of accuracy. In these scenarios, if we find something that looks inaccurate, we can adjust the configuration and reprocess that section, or at any point we can actually open the video and watch. So if we're unsure of a vehicle classification, we can go watch that. Or if we see, that a U-turn is happening and we're not, confident in that, we can actually open the video and watch and confirm that that U-turn took place. So we repeat that process through every hour and all the movements to make sure that we're getting high percentage of matching. So we're looking for 95% over 100 vehicles in a 15-minute bin, and for low volumes, we're looking to match within plus or minus 5 in each 15-minute bin. Step 3 is our data visualization. So these examples are showing, for simplicity, only one movement and one classification, but we can show when we're doing these checks, we're making the screen really big, and we're going through each classification and each movement to make sure that that data, nothing's looking out of place. So this is our time of day inspection, and we're looking for any sort of gaps, dips in the data, or spikes. So if we have an interval, for example, where we're seeing no data for a specific time period, this could be occurring for 2 reasons. So if we open the video to check on what's going on, we might see a really busy intersection where the traffic is just stopped and not moving for a longer period of time. So that might cause no volumes, or we might see the opposite, where there's actually are no vehicles in the scene. And that might be because there's a road closure or an accident kind of off camera that's checking for that. So we can confirm those. We'd also confirm any spikes in the data. So it's sometimes very common to see, at least in North America, our school buses all kind of come and go at the same time. So we might see 5 or 6 of those in 1 minute. So we would check on that. And then we'd also check if there was a large group of pedestrians. So most commonly here we would see children all linked arms together crossing the road, and that might cause a spike in the pedestrians. So for us, it's really important to confirm those spikes and those gaps in the data to make sure that the data is accurate, and we're doing that for all movements and all classifications. Finally, our corridor check. This would be, we can do if there's two adjacent intersections captured at the same date and time. So we're comparing vehicles exiting one sort of steady and entering the other. So our quality assurance specialists are trained that if there's nothing in between those two intersections, we'd call that a perfect corridor, and the data must be within 5 vehicles or 95%. If there's a parking lot or another street in between the two intersections, we would still always run the corridor check, but based on what we can see on the map between the two locations, we have to make a judgment to determine if that variance is acceptable. So something that might cause a corridor to look less accurate could be a school or large office building in between the locations. So we might see a loss of vehicles in the morning, and then we might actually see the vehicles come back and we might gain them back in the afternoon. So with these variances, we'd actually be okay with that. If that means all the vehicles are being accounted for, then we know that that's still accurate. We do these corridor checks for the data to be aligned between the intersections, and we can view them in 1, 5, 10, or 15-minute intervals. So if something looks off, we can kind of look at the different binning. Often here, we might see that a camera is recording an hour before or after another one, especially around daylight savings time changes, if the camera times haven't updated. We also could tell you, you can look at this data to kind of figure out the travel time. So if the intersections are actually further apart, you might see some of the buses taking 5 or 6 minutes to go from one intersection to the other, but we can check that for consistency throughout the day. So we do that for all directions and all classifications. And speaking of classifications, now would be a good time for me to touch on those classifications that we offer. So starting with crosswalk classifications, we have pedestrians and bicycles, and newly added scooters, e-scooters, which I think I touch on later. And then for our vehicle classifications, we have bicycles, motorcycles, cars, light goods vehicles, single unit trucks, which are rigid, and articulated trucks, as well as buses. So during your data request, you can choose all of those classifications or any smaller subsets. And it's important to note that vehicles are classified based on both size and physical characteristics. So some of our limitations around this would include during nighttime video or areas of low light. Some classifications, such as light goods vehicles, may be less possible or have reduced accuracy during the night, because they're physically characterized by being pickup trucks, panel vans, or vehicles with no back or side windows. So for that classification during low light, those physical indicators may not be visible or clear, so that might result in them just being classified as cars during that time. But other than low light conditions, given a setup that received 5 stars, we do have an accuracy guarantee that applies to all of our non-custom classified vehicles listed there. For custom classifications, we have many available. Again, they need to have a unique and distinguishable characteristics. So we've done trams, school buses, container trucks, and it just depends. You'll need to contact our support team to have them added, and our support representatives would probably be able to give you a better insight into the accuracy for each class. For example, in North America, we've done horse and buggies, and we believe that those are going to be very accurate because they're quite distinguishable and usually very visible and obvious on the camera. Whereas taxis, on the other hand, we've done in different countries, and depending on the indicators of what makes it a taxi and what doesn't make it a taxi, the roof light, for example, is not always clearly visible. So for taxi custom classification, we found that we might score closer to 75%. So you just have to check with our support team. If it's a new custom class, we'd have to do some trials, some test runs. So you might be asked to provide some sample video, and then we can help make that happen. It just might take a little time to get that custom class into your portal when you upload. Finally, at Miovision, we do standard turnaround of 72 hours or less, but if you need it sooner, need that data sooner, you can select 24 or 48-hour turnaround. Our data quality specialists work around the clock, my team, so they're there to ensure that whatever videos are coming in, we're looking at right away, getting them configured, and then doing all those quality checks as the data comes back. So for example, last year we processed 1.5 million hours of video, a new record. We usually break the record every year, although this year unfortunately might be a bit different, but we are still processing a good amount of video this week. And I'd like to take a minute again to remind you that our support team is always happy to provide a deployment recommendation, answer your questions about your data, and if you do notice a quality issue, we can fix it quite quickly and free of charge.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason, for all the information and the insights in our video processing. Before we head into the Q&A session of the webinar, I very much like to ask a final poll question. So when do you use video-based solutions? Let me know or provide me the necessary insights on when would you think right now, after knowing this, would be the perfect choice to do video-based counts, or where do you currently using video-based counts the most? Okay, I'm going to give it another 10 seconds for the votes to come in, and then we're going to look at the results. All right, I think all the votes are in. So let's take a look at the final results of the final poll question. All right, awesome. I hope you see them. Yes, well, perfect. As you can see, the majority of you actually base their decision on when to use video-based solutions on either the client, or they in general use it for all the counts. There's a heavy reliance on turning movement counts for cameras. And I would really love to know why we have such a small portion still using other counting methods for pedestrian and bike studies. Maybe if we can jump on a call after the webinar or in the future, I will always like to learn these type of things. So let's close the poll and move into our Q&A session. I hope you already have a couple of questions. I see there were some during the webinar as well, and we're gonna work through them as much as time permits. So Jason, the first question I like to have answered is, if I am counting volumes, where do you put the crossing line actually?
Yep, so for a road, like a road, an ATR highway study, you would do that similar to a road tube. Usually we have kind of a defined area that we use as the tripwire. So the customer would annotate that when they upload the video, and then we would kind of put that to match their annotation. My note there would be that we want to make sure that they're doing that kind of in a area where the cars are kind of going straight, and not, it's best not to be on a curve or where the lanes are about to diverge, or when they're just coming together.
Okay, great. Maybe another question in terms of the annotations. I know that's a general problem when it comes to setting up our studies, and I like to go back maybe to a slide where we talked about this, in particular when it came to, right there, to eastbound and westbound and north and southbound matters.
Yeah, so for us, if you're thinking bound, those are the vehicles coming from the south. So, and I teach this to people all the time when they're new. It's day 2 of our training. So you have to get the boundness as the direction. So a northbound right is actually coming from the south and turning east. So it kind of has nothing to do, but it's always which way the vehicle is traveling as it approaches the intersection, is its
So like
boundness,
this.
and then the movement.
Hmm. Okay,
That
great.
is
So an eastbound would be going from east to west, correct? Oh, a
eastbound,
westbound, sorry.
westbound, yes. Westbound would start at east, so the westbound through would
Mhm.
actually start at east and finish on the west.
Exactly. I just made a little bit of a highlight on the particular slide, so for you to get a bit better of an understanding what that means, and hopefully a couple of our customers and future customers understand now the bound meaning behind this. All right, let me go back to our Q&A session slide. What else do we have? Oh, I see there's a question. Does the Miovision Scout require an underground base to be installed? No, it does not. The Miovision Scout is the hardware device which can be easily installed at a lamp hole, for example. We have a couple of ratchet straps you use, and then to just tighten the base device to the lamp hole and then lock it with the accompanied locks or available locks so it doesn't get stolen as well. So it's a very simple process. We have also, if you go to our help center, you have a couple of videos which shows you how to fix our Scout to a lamp pole or any other device. In the unlikely case there are no lamp poles around or any pole you could be attaching the Scout to, we are also offering or having a tripod available with weights on it. So some of our customers have used this in very rural areas where there was no opportunity to tighten the Scout to an individual lamp pole. So it's a possibility as well. All right. I see it's a little bit of a road map question. Will it be possible to upload data without a tool like MioUploader soon? Well, I can tell you it is on the roadmap. When that will happen is we are not sure yet because nothing has been confirmed, and that's probably a deeper conversation with the product team. But I encourage you to always come to our booths, maybe not this year anymore, unfortunately, but ask the question or keep ask question when we have a final date. But it is in the works, and we do our best to have this particular solution being brought to life as soon as possible. Here I see. Another question is, please, can you tell us the vehicle classification that can be done using video processing? I think, Jason, that's a question you talked about a little bit in your presentation.
Yeah, I think.
Maybe if you
Sorry.
could just want
Yeah, I can.
to
I think
repeat
that
it.
they're on that slide there. I think that question came in kind of before I got to that section,
Ah,
according to that timestamp. So
yeah.
we can follow up after too.
Okay. All
Um,
right.
I do.
Okay.
Sorry if I can cut you off there. I see a question about drone footage. So
Mhm.
we can do video that's not from a Scout unit. So you kind of have to get that approved ahead of time because we have to have a compatible video format. So you have to send us a sample first. Drones, we have had some success as long as the drone is stabilized fairly well and staying up in the air for longer periods. So we can't really handle the drone switching. Often there's kind of one drone's up and then the other one goes up, and but we kind of have to do those as separate studies. But we have had some success on drone studies, and we can definitely usually do other formats of video. It just depends. We just have to make sure it's compatible with our system.
Mhm. Great. Thank you, Jason. Let me see. Let's see if we has. Is it possible to count vehicles in parking areas? Jason, is that the study we have encountered before, or?
We don't specifically do parking lot studies. We've done lots of in and out of parking lots. I've seen where we've set up at 3 or 4 like every entrance and exit, and we've done in and outs, but we don't have the ability to like currently look at which spots are full or empty.
Mm-hmm. I have another question on, is it possible to use the equipment for queue length studies?
It's also a good question. We haven't yet really, usually we need to see fairly far down the road. I think some of our customers have used our camera units to record that and kind of do their own queue analysis, but we don't officially offer that as a study type. But it is great to have conversations with our customers that are interested in those different things. I know that a lot of our product and new features and new study types come from customer demand. So I would encourage people looking for some of those things to reach out to us and talk to us about it and give us insights into how they do that and how they think we could do that kind of through video.
Mm-hmm. There's another product question. Would sometimes be useful to be able to draw a line to the video. Will that be added, that feature? Well, in terms of product, again, that's something we're always trying to figure out how to make it easier for people to annotate the videos and to avoid any recounts or further emailing back and forth in order to configure the study properly. So our product managers are working hard on all the future features, but as said, we are always looking out or stay on top of anything which there might be coming up anytime soon, and you will be the first ones to know as our customers and future potential customers as well.
And there's a few more questions here I'd like to answer. Someone asked why sometimes some intersections can't be processed as one unique intersection, but need to be done as 2 separated. This is fairly common, so we want to make sure you're capturing everything on one. So we need to track, if you go back to my slide about large intersections, we need to make sure we can track the vehicle movement on one full camera. So if we can't track it all the way through, then we would recommend that we would process as 2 intersections. It's back a few more, sorry.
Is it a roundabout or?
Nope, that one right there. So that's the slide. Sorry, the next one. Anyway, this is fairly common. Not that one. Anyway, it can be common with some of our that one. Some of our newer customers get caught up. They've used multiple cameras. They've kind of captured everything, but if we can't track a movement specifically, the example here is the through versus left from the top or bottom. If we can't see it all on one camera, then we'll place it on hold, and we give it. Usually when we put on hold, we try to give a recommendation on how you can still get useful data. So we might recommend to do the example there on the left as 2 separate intersections instead of one. If you don't have time to redeploy and you still want to get all the data, we could do that as 2 separate intersections, one for the top and one for the bottom. Obviously not ideal, and we'd warn you ahead of time. We try to work with our customers to set those expectations on how we're going to proceed. But that can be common, especially with larger roundabouts. If we can't kind of see everything we need to see, then we might recommend doing that as multiple TMCs. So that's something to be aware of when you're planning your project and when you're uploading your video and recording, to make sure that you're capturing everything.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let me see. I have here which ones.
A lot of questions.
Yes, that's great. I have this question: in what format is the data being given to the customer? Would they be compatible with other data accounting we might already have? If you're okay, Jason, I'm going to answer this really quick.
Yep.
So the data provided to you comes in different formats. First of all, it's going to be visualized via the DataLink cloud platform. So you have nice intersection volume diagrams, plus you have bar charts on time-based, which are all interactive. And once you want to download the data, you have the options of either using a PDF format, which includes obviously the pictures as well, but you can also do CSV files as well as Excel files, which you then can further use to either upload them or alter them as per needed basis, and then upload them into, say, for example, other tools to help you to analyze the data even further. Let me see what we have here as well. Does your camera unit come with inbuilt storage? Well, it's not an inbuilt storage per se. It is utilized via the 2 SD card slots, which you can basically then slide an SD card in, and that's where the video gets recorded on, as well as the anonymized MAC address data. How long can it store videos? It really depends on how you're recording. Depending on your locale, you can use different recording settings, and the higher the resolution is, obviously, the higher you will have storage capacity usage. Then we have another question in regards to, there's a lot of hardware questions in here, I see. What's the degree field of the view of the camera? Maybe that's a little bit something Jason could answer again, not so much maybe what the actual degree is, but what is the best degree you would have for a camera angle view to process the highest accuracy?
Yeah, so if you're looking at the angle at the intersection, probably 45. Like I said, for ATRs, you want to angle it at a 45-degree angle. I think our field of vision is closer to 120. I don't actually know for sure, though, but I think it's around 120. Yeah.
Okay. I take 2 more questions. That is, this we already answered.
There's a few questions about specific classifications for specific geographical regions, and I think you'd want to reach out to your sales rep or our support team and ask about that. We've run tests in the past for different areas to get specific different vehicles and see if we can do them as a custom class. There are additional costs associated with custom classes, but those could be handled kind of on a case-by-case basis.
Yes, and while we're speaking, or that's a good end to our webinar as well. Unfortunately, we run out of time, and I don't want to hold you further away from your families. That soon there will be an email going out with an additional new classification being made available to Miovision customers and potential customers, evolving around micromobility. So keep a lookout for that particular email. We briefly mentioned it during the custom classification portion of this webinar. And as I say, have a look around for micromobility solutions. Also, I'd like to make you aware that the webinar was recorded, so you will have access to the recording after the webinar as well. And for the ones who really like to have the slides, because there's a lot of deployment recommendations on them, please reach out to your sales rep or to us directly, and we'll forward them to you, as it is a little bit technically difficult to send so many emails out with attachments, and most often they are ending up in people's spam folders or get blocked entirely. I thank you very much for your attendance and your interactive questions as well. I very much enjoyed the conversation. Thank you, Jason, for being here, giving all the insights on how Miovision processes video, and also how good we are at it, with also showing us the limitations. And I think that's very important to all of us to know what we receive. And I always like to mention is that Miovision provides you with the opportunity to have a verifiable source right next to your count data. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I wish you all the best for the rest of the week, and enjoy the Easter. I'm going now get a couple of Easter eggs and try to hide them already from my son. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.